Manipulative questions are knives wrapped in velvet. They arrive disguised as innocence with a soft tone, but their edge points directly at your emotional security. Why are you so nervous? Don't you trust me? Isn't it your fault? These are not genuine doubts. They are traps designed to destabilize you, to make you give up control and start justifying yourself as if you owe the world explanations. The manipulator does not seek clarity, he seeks dominance. He wants to plant in you the seed of guilt, the poison of insecurity, and the weight of doubt. If you respond with anxiety, if you rush to justify yourself, you've already lost. You gave up your ground, you surrendered your calm, and you put your mind in the hands of someone who knows exactly how to make you wobble. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes your armor. Marcus Aurelius understood it. The real battle is not in the external noise, but in the internal order. Seneca put it bluntly, whoever manages not to react has already defeated the provocateur, and Epictetus was even clearer. You can take everything from me except the way I choose to respond. That's the key. This video is a manual to face these traps firmly. It's not about giving clever answers or winning absurd arguments, but about maintaining your silent authority, not giving up your calm, showing that your mind is a territory impossible to conquer. Here you will learn 10 attitudes that, if you practice them, will shield you against any attempt at manipulation, disguised as an innocent question. Because whoever masters their mind disarms the manipulator without lifting a finger. 1. Why do you get like this over something so small? One of the most poisonous questions a manipulator can throw is this: why do you get like this over something so small? It seems like an innocent phrase, even loaded with calm, but in reality, it is a disguised dart that seeks a single effect: to invalidate what you feel. What for you is big, important, or painful suddenly is reduced to the category of exaggeration. It's the typical move that minimizes your experience and puts you in the position of having to justify your reaction, as if you were weak or ridiculous for feeling what you feel. Behind this question hides a clear strategy: to make you doubt yourself. The manipulator knows that if he manages to convince you that you are overreacting, he will start to control not only the conversation, but also your perception of reality. By turning your annoyance into something small, he puts the weight on your shoulders, making you feel guilty for reacting. And if you accept that label, you end up giving him the power to decide what is important and what is not in your life. A simple example: someone disrespects you and you point it out. Instead of acknowledging their mistake, that person smiles and responds, "Why do you get like this over something so small?" Suddenly, the discussion is no longer about their lack of respect and starts to revolve around your exaggeration. That's the trap. The focus changes and you are caught in the need to prove that you are not overblowing anything. It's a game of mirrors in which you always lose if you accept the dynamic. How do you neutralize this maneuver? The first step is to recognize that there is no such thing as something so small when it threatens your peace, your boundaries, or your dignity. What is insignificant to the other can be fundamental to you. That difference is not weakness, it's identity. So the first piece of advice is not to allow them to dictate the scale of what is worth or not worth. Your emotions and your perception are legitimate. The second step is not to fall into justification. When you face that question, avoid phrases like, "It is important to me," said in a defensive tone. That only reinforces the trap. Instead, respond from firmness and calm. "For me, it's not small, and that's enough." You don't need to explain more, because each explanation is another thread in the manipulator's web. Third, practice the art of strategic silence. Stoicism teaches that greatness is not in the intensity of the reaction, but in self-mastery. Seneca said that it is not things that hurt us, but the interpretation we give them. Here, the key is that the interpretation is yours, not the one that someone else wants to impose on you. Let no one steal the authority over what you feel. 2. Don't you trust me after all? Trust is like a suspension bridge. It is built with effort, step by step, until it allows you to cross without fear. But when someone throws the question, "Don't you trust me after all?" what they really do is shake that bridge so that you doubt your stability. It's an attack disguised as innocence, an emotional trap that seeks to blame you, placing you in the role of the distrustful, the ungrateful, or the paranoid. Behind that question, there is no genuine interest in strengthening the relationship. What there is manipulation for you to lower your guard and give ground that you should not give. The goal is clear: to make you feel guilty for setting boundaries. Whoever uses this question intends to turn trust into an absolute obligation, as if not blindly trusting was a moral mistake. The reality is that trust is built with actions, not words. No one has the right to claim it as if it were an automatic gift, much less when their actions arouse doubts. How to face this trap? The first piece of advice is to remember that trust is not a blank check. It is given to the extent that actions support it. If someone needs to ask you why you don't trust, it's because something in their behavior has eroded it. Having this clear prevents you from falling into guilt and defends you from emotional pressure. The second piece of advice is not to respond defensively. If you say, "Yes, I trust you," just to avoid conflict, you give away power that has not been earned. Instead, respond firmly and straightforwardly. Trust is demonstrated, not demanded. This phrase cuts the game because it shifts the burden to where it really belongs, the actions of the other. Third piece of advice: don't fear silence. In the face of this manipulative question, being silent for a few seconds can be more forceful than any explanation. Silence exposes the discomfort of the manipulator and shows that you do not accept to enter the role they want to impose on you. Fourth, remember that distrust is not always a lack of love or respect. Often it is an instinct for preservation. Stoicism teaches us to evaluate reality as it is, not as we would like it to be. If something arouses doubts, the wise thing is not to keep quiet or give in, but to observe clearly and act prudently. When someone throws you the classic, "Don't you trust me after all?" understand that it is not a question, it is an attempt to manipulate your loyalty. Do not give in to emotional blackmail. Do not give up your peace for the need to please. True trust is not imposed, it is earned with consistency. Whoever tries to obtain it through guilt is already showing you that they do not deserve the bridge that you value so much. And you, as the owner of your mind and your calm, do not have to blindly cross a bridge that is not safe. 3. Are you sure or are you making it up? Doubt is like a shadow that someone places in front of you when you're under the sun. You see clearly, you know what's happening, but that shadow seeks to obscure your certainty, make you stumble in your own clarity. The question, "Are you sure or are you making it up?" is one of the manipulator's favorite tools because it aims directly at your memory and your inner confidence. They don't want to know the truth. They want to sow confusion in your mind so that you hesitate, so that you feel that maybe you're not right, that perhaps it was all a perception error. These types of questions are poison disguised as curiosity. When someone questions you in this way, the hidden message is simple. Don't trust yourself, trust what I tell you. The manipulator intends to destabilize your security with the intention of replacing it with their version of events. How do you neutralize this attack? First, understand that the doubt they try to sow does not define your reality. Your memory, your experience, and your perception have value. The manipulator wants to turn the obvious into questionable, but that doesn't mean they succeed if you don't allow it. Remind yourself that certainty does not need external approval. The second piece of advice is not to fall into the trap of over-explaining. Faced with this question, it is common for the victim to start repeating details over and over again, trying to prove that they are telling the truth. This reaction, although it seems logical, only strengthens the manipulator, because it shows that they managed to make you doubt and feel the need to convince them. Instead of entering that vicious circle, stay calm and respond firmly. I am sure, and I don't need to make anything up. Brief, direct, and without room for interpretations. Third piece of advice, practice the serenity of silence. If you notice that the manipulator seeks to pressure you, keep a few seconds of calm before responding. This lapse shows that you are not dragged along and projects silent authority. The desperation to clarify is the terrain of the weak. The conscious pause is the strategy of the strong. Fourth piece of advice, rely on the consistency of your actions. When your life and your words have consistency, you don't need to prove anything. Stoicism teaches that truth does not need adornments. Seneca said that a straight life is the best defense against slander. If what you say matches what you do, no tricky question can disarm you. Finally, remember that manipulation is not defeated by discussing every detail, but by maintaining inner clarity. The next time someone throws a "Are you sure or are you making it up?" at you, don't take it as a legitimate question. Recognize it as an attempt to control your confidence. Don't give up that ground. Affirm yourself in your memory, in your experience, and in your truth. Whoever masters their mind does not need to prove anything because certainty stands on its own. And in the face of a manipulator, calm firmness is the most powerful response. 4. Do you always have to attack me? A cunning predator does not always roar or show its fangs. Sometimes it pretends to be a victim. That is the hidden strategy in the question, do you always have to attack me? It does not seek to understand you or solve the problem. It seeks to reverse the roles so that you are the one who carries the blame. What was a conversation about their mistake or their behavior suddenly becomes a trial against you. The manipulator dresses up as innocent and places you in the role of aggressor, making you doubt your intention and end up apologizing for something you did not do. Behind this question there is a calculated move, to divert attention. You point out harmful behavior, and instead of receiving a mature response, what you get is this disguised accusation. Thus, the focus is no longer on what they did wrong and is directed towards your tone, your words, or your way of expressing yourself. What was clear becomes confusion, and the more you defend yourself from not having attacked, the more you reinforce the narrative that the manipulator wants to impose. How to face this kind of trap? The first step is to understand that this question is not a mirror of your behavior, but a tool to weaken you. Do not fall into the trap of justifying every word. If you start to show that you were not attacking, you have already accepted the manipulator's ground. Instead, maintain firmness and clarity. I am not attacking you. I am talking about a fact. That phrase returns the focus to the right place. The second advice is to watch your tone without losing authority. The manipulator often takes advantage of any sign of anger to sustain his role as a victim. Therefore, practice conscious calm. Speak firmly, without raising your voice, without the need for emotional adornments. When security is expressed without shouting, it is much harder to manipulate. Third advice, do not allow them to change the subject. If you mention a fault and they respond with, "Do you always have to attack me?" redirect the conversation. It's not an attack, it's an observation about what happened. Repeat as many times as necessary until it is clear. The discipline of staying on point is what frustrates the attempt at diversion. The fourth advice is to recognize the strategy within yourself. Knowing that they are trying to unfairly blame you strengthens your resistance. Stoicism teaches to observe what happens without being dragged into the emotional theater. Whoever disguises themselves as a victim seeks to rule through guilt, but that mask falls apart when you do not give in to the game. Finally, remember that you do not need to prove innocence against invented accusations. Your greatest weapon is the consistency between what you say and what you do. If your intention was to point out a real fact, there is nothing to prove. And the less you wear yourself out explaining, the more evident it becomes that the attack never existed. The next time you hear, "Do you always have to attack me?" do not take it as a truth or as a mirror. It is just a manipulator's disguise to turn the burden on you. Do not accept it. Return the topic to the real fact, speak calmly, and maintain your clarity. Because whoever masters their mind does not become their own executioner in the face of another's false crying. 5. Didn't you understand what I really meant? There are phrases that work like distorted mirrors. They distort what you see so that you end up doubting your own vision. The question, "Didn't you understand what I really meant?" is exactly that. An attempt to make you feel clumsy, incapable of understanding the obvious, as if the problem was not the other's lack of clarity, but your supposed inability to interpret correctly. It's a dangerous strategy because it places the conversation on slippery ground where blame slides onto you without you noticing. The manipulator uses this question to rewrite what they already said. Perhaps their words were hurtful, perhaps they were contradictory, but instead of owning up to it, they decide to turn the situation around. Now you are the one who didn't understand. You are the one who misinterpreted, or the one who doesn't know how to read between the lines. In this way, they avoid taking responsibility for their message and sow doubt in your mind. It's a direct hit to your confidence, because when they repeat this strategy several times, you end up believing that indeed you don't know how to listen, that you take everything wrong, or that you exaggerate what was said. That's the trap. How to react to this kind of maneuver? The first step is to stand firm in what you heard. If you clearly remember the words they used, trust your perception. You don't need to accept an alternate version just because someone imposes it with confidence. Memory and conscious attention are your best defenses. Second, avoid the temptation to enter into a war of interpretations. Don't fall into the game of repeating over and over what you understood, hoping that the other person will recognize it. This only feeds the cycle, because the manipulator will always have a "that's not what I meant" ready to disarm you. Instead of insisting, calmly affirm, "That's what I heard, and that's how I received it." This phrase shifts the responsibility to the sender, who should clarify their words if they really didn't express what they wanted. Third advice, maintain your composure. This question is often thrown with a tone of superiority, as if the other person had the absolute truth and you were the naive one who doesn't know how to capture subtleties. Don't enter into that dynamic. Respect for your own interpretation is what holds your authority in the conversation. Fourth, apply the clear limit strategy. If the person insists that you didn't understand, respond, then you should explain it better. With that simple phrase, you dismantle the trap and return the burden to the correct place. The speaker has the duty to be clear, not the listener to guess hidden intentions. Stoicism teaches that the truth needs no adornments or excuses, and that clarity is a sign of virtue. If someone tries to manipulate you through this question, understand that what is at stake is not your ability to understand, but their inability to assume what they said. The next time you're told, "Didn't you understand what I really meant?" don't get defensive. Recognize the tactic, affirm your perception, and return the responsibility, because whoever stands firm in what they heard is not molded by distorted mirrors. 6. Could it be that it's your fault? Blame is like a stone thrown in the middle of the night. You don't see it coming, but when it hits, it leaves you marked and confused. That's the intention of the question, could it be that it's your fault? The manipulator doesn't want to solve anything. What they seek is to shift the responsibility of their actions onto you, make you the target and clean their image while you carry the weight. It's a cunning move because it appeals to your conscience, to that natural sense of questioning yourself, and turns it into a weapon against you. The mechanism is simple. You point out an unfair action, and instead of responding maturely, the other person turns the conversation so you doubt your position. Could it be that you exaggerated? Could it be that you provoked the situation? Could it be that you sought it? Suddenly, what was a legitimate complaint becomes an examination of your own behavior, and the more you try to clarify that you are not guilty, the more you get caught in the manipulator's web. Second, observe the facts objectively. Ask yourself, what really happened? What concrete action belongs to me, and which one belongs to the other? Stoicism teaches that we should distinguish between what is in our control and what is not. If the mistake is in their decisions, you don't have to carry it in silence. Clarity in the facts is the best shield against emotional distortions. Third advice: respond firmly without falling into exaggerated defense. When someone throws this question at you, avoid the desperate tone of, "It's not my fault." That reaction only feeds the manipulator's narrative. Instead, use short and forceful phrases. "No, this responsibility is not mine. Your actions speak for themselves." By not entering into a debate, you cut off the energy of the attack. Fourth, practice strategic neutrality. Sometimes the best way to dismantle this question is to return it to the sender calmly. "Why do you think it's my fault?" This turn forces the manipulator to expose their argument and often leaves them without ground because the accusation was just an empty move to destabilize you. The last piece of advice is not to allow guilt to become a habit. If you accept this tactic repeatedly, you will end up doubting everything you do, as if each step was a mistake. The Stoic knows that useless guilt is an invisible chain that paralyzes. Learn to differentiate between real responsibility and imposed burden. When someone tells you, "Could it be that it's your fault?" see it for what it is, an attempt to shift the weight. Don't accept it. Stand firm. Hold the clarity of the facts and remember that guilt, when it doesn't belong to you, is just a stone that you can leave on the ground instead of carrying it on your back. 7. Aren't you overreacting again? Exaggeration is the disguise that the manipulator uses to invalidate your pain. It's their way of painting in garish colors what you're just beginning to process. The question, "Aren't you overreacting again?" doesn't seek to balance the conversation. It seeks to silence your voice, to turn your discomfort into hysteria, your unease into whim. It's a subtle but accurate blow straight to the emotional throat. After hearing it, most people fall silent, withdraw, doubt themselves, and shut down. Because if they make you believe you're exaggerating, then your emotion loses value, and what you feel stops mattering. This kind of question plants a suspicion within you, one that whispers to you, maybe you are exaggerating, maybe you're being too sensitive, maybe you should keep quiet. And there, without you noticing, you've already given up power. The person who manipulates knows this. That's why they throw out that phrase calmly, with feigned concern, as if they were really looking out for your well-being. But what they're trying to do is silence you, make you feel like you don't have the right to react, that you're always pushing things to the limit. How do you respond to this? First, by recognizing the intention behind the phrase. You're not facing a neutral observation, you're facing an attack on your perception. At that moment, instead of explaining or justifying what you feel, affirm it. Don't turn it into a debate topic. If you're upset, you're upset. If something hurt you, it hurt you. The emotion is yours, and no one has the right to label it as exaggerated. Second, don't downplay your emotion to fit in. Many, to avoid being seen as intense or dramatic, tone it down, swallow the complaint, smile uncomfortably. This only feeds the manipulator. Instead, respond calmly. I'm speaking from what I feel, and that deserves respect. Don't shout, don't explain. Speak firmly, speak clearly, and don't move from the emotional place you occupy. Third advice, don't allow that question to be repeated without consequences. If someone tends to throw it every time you express something, stop the conversation and set boundaries. Say, if every time I speak you tell me I'm exaggerating, there's no possible dialogue. That phrase cuts off the repetition of the pattern and forces the other person to recognize that their words are a form of invalidation. Stoicism doesn't teach us to nullify emotions, but to understand them, to channel them with wisdom and control. Reacting to injustice is not exaggerating, it's having judgment. Being upset when you're manipulated is not a flaw, it's awareness. The next time you hear, "Aren't you overreacting again?" don't respond with guilt, respond with presence. Because what the manipulator calls exaggeration is often just the reflection of your awakening. And whoever awakens is not obliged to sleep so that others may feel comfortable. 8. What if it's all just in your head? The mind is like a dark room. When someone who doesn't understand what you're feeling walks in with a broken flashlight, their first reaction is to blame the darkness. That's the function of the question, what if it's all just in your head? It's not an invitation to reflect, it's a direct attempt to dismiss what you're feeling, to make you believe that the problem is you, that everything is imagination, that everything that bothers you, hurts you, or confuses you doesn't exist outside of you. This phrase is dangerous because it doesn't attack your ideas, it attacks your entire perception. It seeks to make you doubt your senses, your intuition, your emotions. And if it succeeds, it leaves you defenseless. You can no longer trust what you see or what you feel because supposedly everything is a product of your disordered mind. The manipulator washes their hands while you get tangled up alone in a maze of doubts. The real problem is not just the phrase, it's the moment when they say it. It usually comes just when you're starting to connect with something important, when you're finally putting words to a discomfort. Then, instead of receiving understanding, they throw that phrase at you like a wall. And if you're not alert, you crash into it and take responsibility for everything. You become your own judge, your own executioner, telling yourself that maybe you exaggerated, that maybe you didn't understand well, that maybe everything is fantasy. And how do you cut this kind of manipulation? First, by recognizing that what you feel is real, even if the other person doesn't understand it. Your perception doesn't need to be validated to exist. If something bothers you, you don't need a second opinion to assume it as true. Feeling is not a mistake, it's information. And whoever makes you doubt that is not trying to help you, they're trying to silence you. Second, respond from clarity, not from defense. Phrases like "no, it's not in my head" often sound weak because they come from guilt. Instead, respond firmly. "I'm experiencing it and that's enough." Cut the conversation there if necessary. You're not obligated to explain anything that the other person doesn't want to understand. Third, shift the burden. If someone doubts your perception, make them argue, "What makes you think it's not real?" This turn forces the manipulator to expose their tactic because they have no arguments, only insinuations. When forced to explain, their game falls apart. Stoic philosophy is not based on denying what is felt, but on recognizing it, ordering it, and governing it. Saying that everything is in your head is a cheap way to evade the conversation, a way to avoid taking responsibility for how the external affects you. The next time someone says to you, "What if it's all just in your head?" remember this. Yes, it's in your head, and that's why you're processing it, understanding it, naming it, and overcoming it. What you won't allow is for someone to use your mind as an excuse to not face their own responsibility. Because if your perception bothers, maybe it's not imagination, maybe it's the truth. 9. Can't you see you're misinterpreting everything? A very old trick in the art of manipulation is to play with the broken mirror. The person throws an offensive phrase, a hurtful gesture, a hint loaded with venom, and when you react, they simply tell you, you're misinterpreting everything. That's how deception works. Not only is what happened denied, but you are also accused of having seen it wrong, of having understood what was not, of having distorted reality as if your mind was defective. The manipulator does not justify themselves, they disarm you from the root, your interpretation. This type of question does not aim to clarify, it aims to nullify. It seeks to make you question your understanding, to make you believe that you exaggerated, that you heard wrong, that you understood backwards. If they get you to doubt once, they will always do it. Because whoever manages to make you think that your reading of reality is flawed can mold you to their liking. That's the game. They convince you that the error is in your eyes and not in their actions. How do you break this tactic? First, by making it clear that not all discomfort is misinterpretation. You have the right to name what you felt. You're not obligated to fit their version of events as if it were the only possible one. When someone throws that phrase at you, respond firmly, "I am interpreting from what I saw and heard." That's enough. You're not making things up, you're observing. Second, stand firm on the details. The manipulator needs you to doubt the concrete. That's why they generalize and divert. You must return to the exact point. What was said, what was done, how it made you feel. Don't exaggerate, don't embellish, just describe accurately. That clarity leaves little room for the other to escape through the route of denial. Third advice, don't argue interpretation against interpretation. That fight is always won by the one who knows how to manipulate. Don't get into the dynamic of, "I understood this," against, "No, that's not what I meant." It's a circle with no exit. Instead, focus on what it produced in you. This is how I experienced it, and that's what affected me. There, the debate is cut off. Fourth, observe patterns. If this phrase appears frequently in the mouth of the same person, you are probably not misinterpreting anything. You are seeing clearly what the other does not want to admit. Stoicism teaches that truth is simple, direct, without embellishments. If someone constantly needs to convince you that you didn't understand anything, it's because they're not being transparent. And finally, don't give up your judgment. The interpretation of reality is also your right. Don't let someone put a filter over your eyes and tell you how to feel or think. The next time you're told, "Can't you see you're misinterpreting everything?" don't rush to doubt yourself. Breathe, remember the facts, reaffirm what you experienced, and don't give up your perception. Because manipulation begins where you decide to stop trusting what you already know. And you know more than they would like you to remember. 10. Is it really worth making a fuss over this? The manipulator's last resort resembles the sound of a door slowly closing. They don't shout, they don't push, they simply try to make you leave quietly. The question, "Is it really worth making a fuss over this?" is designed to make you feel that your discomfort is an exaggeration, that your need to speak is a whim, that your limit is a waste of time. The goal is clear: to make you back down before you even start to defend yourself. This type of question doesn't resolve conflicts, it silences them. It's an attempt to shut down a conversation that is uncomfortable, to put out the fire without wondering why it started. The manipulator throws it when they know you're about to touch a sensitive point, when they feel they can no longer disguise their intentions, and then they change the direction. Now the problem is not what happened, but that you want to talk about it. That's the move. How do you respond to this? First, by recognizing that if something affects you, it is already valid. You don't need to justify it with numbers, impossible arguments, or tears. If something bothers you, that's enough. It's not pride, it's awareness. And whoever truly loves you listens before judging the magnitude of the matter. Second, respond with a clear and guilt-free phrase. "This does matter to me." This way you give value to your perception without asking for permission. You're not looking for a fight, you're looking for understanding, and if the other person can't handle that, the problem is not you. Third advice, Don't fall into the game of minimizing yourself to keep the peace. Many people prefer to swallow discomfort to avoid making a fuss. But that false peace turns into a silent bomb. Sooner or later, the unsaid turns into resentment, and that does end up being a real problem. Fourth, stand firm without the need to escalate the conflict. Talking about something that bothers you doesn't mean making a scene. It means maturity. Stoicism is not about enduring everything in silence, but about expressing what is necessary without letting emotions cloud judgment. And finally, remember this. Whoever makes you feel that everything is an exaggeration, that it's never the right time, or that you always complicate things, is not interested in your well-being. They are interested in silencing you. The next time you're asked if it's worth talking about, answer honestly. Because your peace of mind is not negotiable, and keeping quiet to avoid bothering is never a solution. True peace is built when you can look the other person in the eyes and say, "This matters to me, and I'm going to say it." Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment, "I am Stoic," as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.